Fraternity of Girth, of course. Fraternity of Girth is the best strength sports clothing out there if you're a person of girth. If you're into strongman, powerlifting, Highland Games, this is the clothes you got to get into, man. They're comfy, the designs rock. Coming out with new stuff all the time. Pandemic Games, you should have already gotten your shirts. If you didn't, sorry, too late. But you got to be rocking those shirts when you put in your entries for the Pandemic Games. Just get out there and throw. Put the shirt on, put a kilt on, put your favorite socks on, put on your face paint, all the stupid bullshit you want to do, and go out there rocking the Fraternity of Girth shirt. Go get your throws, measure them, get them in. We're going to have some fun. Fraternity of Girth. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to get 10% off anything you get there. Mwah! HEAVYLIGHT! Hey there, my fellow quarantinees. Is that the word? Quarantinees? Hello to the quarantine? Oh, God, that sounds like a terrible, emo album. Like a scene album. It sounds like the title to a scene album, or like the Welcome to the Quarantined, or like To the Quarantined. That's like a My Bloody Valentine album for sure. That's like a live bootleg. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time today, instead of just helping, grabbing you guys by the hand and bringing you down my own descent into madness that happens every week. I also wanted to do, something constructive for you. And trust me, this hurts. This is as painful for me as it is for you guys. Doing something productive and useful. It's not my bag on this podcast, and I promise to never do it again, but that's what we're going to do today. I wanted to talk about practice, a la Allen Iverson. I did want to talk about practice. Allen Iverson did not want to talk about practice. I do want to talk about practice because none of us are very talented athletes like Allen Iverson. So we need practice, and we do need to talk about it. And I know because of where we all are, because we are the quarantined now, God, man, I don't think it's going to make it to this episode, but that's eventually, maybe that will, to the quarantined. That will be like my total emo core, straight up scene. Maybe I'll do like crabcore. I'll do a crabcore song. There we go. But yeah, man, it's really hard not to take you guys down the spiral of my brain and do something constructive. This is how hard it is for me to actually focus and do something. Since we are all the quarantined, we are spending probably more time than usual throwing or lifting or training at home, or at least thinking about it. And you're going back into more of an off-season practice mode. So, if it's possible for you, your life and your family allow for it, then get a bunch of practices in. Get out and throw. I'm doing it in spite of all logic saying that I shouldn't be able to with the kids home. Luckily, Ashley has been home now for a couple weeks. She's been on kind of a little mini vacation that was scheduled anyway. It worked out pretty well. So I've been able to get some training sessions in. I threw weight for distance a little bit today. So was that today? Maybe it was yesterday. It was yesterday. Yeah, I threw weight for distance yesterday. I'm working on my one turn a lot. Really trying to develop the finish out of the one turn. I feel like I have some technical flaws in my finish that kind of get covered up by, I do have the teeniest little bit of snappiness. I can be a little explosive and fast at times, but I think that masks a lot of technical flaws with the way that I finish. So I'm going to be looking at that. So, but since we're all in the mode where we're probably thinking about practice and how to restructure everything, let's just talk about what a throwing practice for a Highland Games athlete looks like. Look, I program a lot of athletes. I build a lot of practices across a lot of different skill levels. I have brand new beginners. I have pro athletes in the heavy light program. So, just depending on their skill level is kind of what their particulars are looking like or what skill they're working on. Sometimes a lot of folks are working on very similar things. Sometimes people are working on their very own problem that they've built up. It's just, everybody's season ebbs and flows generally the same, but people are going to want to peak for different things or be rested for different things and so on and so forth. They'll have different week events. So that's where things are going to, start to change. But no matter how different they get, the structure is fundamentally the same. The structure of how I build a practice, how I do it for myself, I do practice what I preach most times. I practice what I preach, but, the structure of a practice looks pretty much the same. I've talked at length about my idea of what the practice code is, like opposite the talent code, right? The practice code is just how we break things apart. Like plain and simple. That is, the practice code is, again, without delving too far into it, kind of what the practice code is to me how do I succinctly put this without costing you guys an hour of your life? That when you do enough activities and enough sports, especially, you start to see when you break practice apart and really dissect it and look at it, all practice starts to look the same. Your kind of effective practice is all doing sort of the same thing. And if you are part of a program or have a coach that's not doing some of this stuff, you need to maybe question that, in my opinion. So in the practice code, in my mind, it's about breaking it apart, whatever the movement is, whatever the thing you're doing is, break it apart into pieces. Slow it down while you work on those pieces. Slow it down to work on the individual pieces or the thing that you've chosen to work on that day. Then use variations and partials, like add something to the throw or take something away from the throw, add conditions to it, variations, so you can really work on those things. Like you can work on not just a single movement, but like a movement in a smaller context, in a slight context, in a partial context, a varied context. And then you put it back together, keeping it slow, keeping the intensity low. And then as you put it back together and consistency arises, you progressively add speed or intensity or pressure, whatever all those things are going to be. You add those things back, but you don't just go out there and throw. So that's I tend to structure everybody's, including my practices, that way. And if you've played sports, I bet if you look back and you had a good coach, you had a good coaching staff, you're going to see a lot of those same things arise. That's what's going to happen. So I wrote in my 2017 book, Heavy Light. It's available at throwbros.com, a couple other places, Amazon. It's not actually on Amazon right now. I got to get that fixed. Boo, Mike. But you can buy it at throwbros.com. I wrote a whole section called The Anatomy of a Practice, and we're gonna do a reading together today. Just pretend that we're fireside right now, and I'm reading to you. It's story time, guys. Let's pretend it's circle time. We're all a bunch of big babies, so let's do circle time. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but so too often, Highland Games athletes just go out and throw. They may take a few partial throws to warm up, hit some quick stretches, then get to throwing. Often the hope is that you will continue to warm and loosen up as you throw and eventually hit your stride. While there's certainly value in full reps, you really have to think of this time as practice. If you played football when you were younger, think of it this way. Were your practices just full speed scrimmages with the offense running the entire playbook? If you played baseball, was batting practice done with your starting pitchers throwing hard to everyone? Hopefully not. More likely, there was a group warm-up of some kind. Then you started with purposeful drilling, not porpoiseful drilling, to develop very specific skills. Then your team probably practiced situations and mental preparedness as well. After that, maybe you scrimmaged at close to game speed. Good practices are built by deconstructing the act of playing the game, sharpening the execution of each skill, and then putting it all back together to get athletes executing these newly acquired or improved skills in a game situation. Man, I sounded almost smart right there when I wrote that. Continuing, throwing is an individual sport, but the principles are exactly the same. Unfortunately, we have a lack of in-person coaching in our sport, and we are often left to our own devices to learn the throws. Therefore, we have to shift our perspective from going to throw to practicing with purpose. Don't just go throw hammers today. Consider what part of the hammer throw needs work. What tools are you going to use to address that? Jump ahead a little bit. So always ask yourself before taking the practice field, what am I working on today? That's the biggest mistake that I see with athletes in the Highland Games and lots of, post-academic sports when they're not professionals, hobby sports, sort of fringe sports that we're into, is that people don't go out to practice with a purpose of like, hey, here's what we're working on today. Like a football team goes out and says like, hey, we were weak on screen passes in last week's game, so we're going to hit a lot of screen passes. We're going to work on a lot of the schemes to get the offensive line out, whatever. Like we're going to work on, work on all that kind of anything. Like I'm trying to think of other examples. Like I can only think of like the sports that I played or something like that. I don't know, like fencing. We would go. I was like, today you're going to work on lower body attacks, like because you're facing an opponent that may be susceptible to those, whatever. Like what are you working on today? And that's something that I think you need to go out in the mindset of is like, okay, last week or the week before when I worked on this, I tried to do this and I was really struggling with it. And I can see now from watching film, talking to my coach, that this is what needs work on. So that's the advantage of having a coach a lot of times, by the way, is they'll tell you what you're going to be working on that day. And they'll give you the idea. But, sometimes you just get the instructions and go, right? You put your head down and do it. But a lot of times you'll know why you're working on what you're working on, or you remember the critiques and the things that happened the last time you threw, and you're able to bring those out and work on them. And you can bring a toolkit out as you get better and better. You realize like, hey, I can use the one turn in my way for distance to work on my finish, to develop a better sprint, to be a little more explosive. I can do the cast and drop so I can stay balanced out of the back when I do my first turn. Like, you understand the toolkit a little bit the more you throw. But that's the value of good coaching early on. But no matter what, a practice should look like this. You should have a warm-up, no matter what. I don't care how young you are, like, oh, I throw better cold. Shut up. I was that guy too, and you end up getting not even just hurt, you just get achy. And you don't find a rhythm, and you don't work into the groove of throwing well. You may feel snappy and explosive, but you're missing like 75% of the parts of the throw that should be fluid while you feel snappy and strong. So warm up. Like at the bare minimum, do 5 minutes, right? Just, I don't know, move around, do something. I put in the book as a sample warm-up, like a 3-minute jog, 3 sets of 10 air squats, 15 shoulder pass-throughs or band pull-aparts or something like that, whatever you have on you, and do some sort of hip stretch, like a couch stretch, pigeon, something like that, just to get the things flowing in the hips. Just, that's about it. It's not like, I don't need you to do the splits out there. I just need everything to get moving. I need you to wake those parts of you up. And then do some footwork and visualization. The events you're going to do that day, do some footwork if they're like stones, if it's weights, even if it's caber or something like that. Do some footwork and then do some visualization. Visualize a lot. I could do a whole nother, that's Texan talk for you. I could do a whole nother episode on visualization. I did on my old podcast, I Do Whatever podcast, I did an extended thing about it. Around like I did one where I kind of followed myself in podcast form around doing the weekend that I was going to throw. And visualization is a huge part of my game. And it's a huge part of anybody's game at a certain level. You should learn to visualize because you can't practice all the time you want to, but you can get quality mental reps by visualizing properly. There's lots of different steps to it. I'm going to stick a pin in that and come back to it at some point because I love visualization. I think it's one of the most underutilized skills by athletes. And I think you can visualize context. I think you can visualize part of the throw, the entire throw. I think how you visualize can be can honestly be periodized and can be modified throughout the season and how close you are to competition. Now, a big part that I program is that there's always drills. Whatever you decide to work on, like drills are for addressing the weak points. That's the break it apart part of the practice code. Is do the drills and do their part, very small partial movements or single movements, single positions that we're trying to reinforce. That's where the real shitty grunt work is done, is in the drills, is just programming. I talked about this last episode, is just all that time that you spend turning your feet, getting your hips in the right position, with nothing in your hand and just moving and dancing around on a gym floor or a field or in your garage like an idiot. That's the stuff that pays off. That stuff actually, because then you have to piece it together into partials, into variations, and all of a sudden those things become automatic. So moving into variations. So throw variations. I say in the book, throws broken down into their component parts in order to fine-tune your movements and rhythm. These are critically important to building consistent technique. These variations will often shorten or lengthen the delivery of the throw to highlight weaknesses and allow you to work on them in real time. At times, it'll be useful to track your PR distances. That's a big one for me. I believe, I've said till I'm blue in the face, that I have straight up stole from Westside. Straight up stole it. Use variations of the primary movements to track your PRs and try to get PRs in those every day and change what the variations are. Constantly vary what you're trying to hit your max, you're trying to hit your best in when you're on the field. Because if you go out there and try to hit a full throw PR every time, you're going to end up real disappointed. But if you go up trying to hit, like with a weight for distance, I don't know, one turn, try to hit a PR with that, or you try to hit a toes to board PR or a standing throw, or with the hammer, you try to track your one wind throw, your single wind throw, and get that farther and farther. It will give you the ability to feel progression without it always being about the full throw. I straight up shoplifted that from Louie Simmons. I did not invent anything whole cloth there. But the same thing works for throwing. I'm doing it right now. I'm trying to get better distances in my one turn than I've ever had, so I can use that as a yardstick of, am I doing the things important to the throw that I need to do? Am I getting stronger? Am I getting more explosive? Am I fixing my finish? That's what I'm working on. So I use that variation. If I did it in a full throw, I'm adding like 10 other factors to that because it's a more complex throw and there's a mental part to it that it's the competition movement. And if I stall, I'll start shitting all over myself like we're not making any progress. It's good practice to use variations and partials to track your PRs. I will preach that until the day I die in 2 months. I will preach that they're a good barometer of where you're going with your throws. Like that's the other kind of the not so obvious benefit is that it keeps you in a PR mindset. Again, shoplifted from Louie, is that you go into the throw session, especially in certain times like the preseason is when I like to do that a lot. If you're going in there thinking like, all right, I want to get this toes to board today. I'm feeling snappy. I'm feeling good. Good. Go get it. That's your PR mindset for the day. And then by the time you get to your full stone throws, you're like, all right, yeah, I'm just doing the work now. I'm going to put together that stuff that I worked on. Let's do that. But it keeps you in that PR mindset, which I think is super, super important. And then finally, after all that work is done, you move to your full throws. Sometimes, like in the deep off season or early preseason, it's not that many. Sometimes you're just reminding yourself, okay, here's what the full movement looks like. Or like, hey, that partial that I did that's the middle of the throw, let me feel that now in context what I'm fixing now. It's like dropping in the Lego block that you made this nice Lego. You found this nice Lego block through practice. And you're dropping it into the cool fucking spaceship you made. You're dropping it into that and saying like, oh, this works, or this doesn't quite work. Let's refine that again next week. That's what full throws are for early on. As your season progresses, though, you start adding more full throws because that's what you're doing. When the weekend comes, you need to be doing that. That's your job. Like now you got to be throwing the competition throws. So as you can tell, I get really fired up about practice. This is probably the most animated I've been on a podcast in a while. But hey, I mean, look at it this way. Legitimately, you spend way more time on the practice field. Even if you don't practice that much, you spend way more time on the practice field than you do on the competing. Think about the number of hours that you've spent. Like you've spent like one full day, maybe parts of 2 days competing once in a while, maybe 10 to 20 times a year. But the beginning of your career and until now, you spend more time on the practice field. So you need to take that seriously and you need to find a way to structure that and enjoy it too. Like that has to be fun. And if you can check the boxes of have the structure built out and know what your structure is going in and know what you're working on, it's so much easier to enjoy it because it takes that load of like, oh God, what do I do now? How do I fix this? What the fuck? Like I've never felt that before. Like, oh, what do I do next? I don't know. What event do you want to do next? I don't know. What do you want to do next? Side note, when you go to throw with other people, it is the hardest fucking thing in the world to keep your practice structure. Because no matter what, when there is more than one thrower on the field practicing together, it always becomes a like let's do stones for an hour and a half, and then we'll move to heavyweight, and we'll throw that till we're tired. We'll throw a few lightweights, and then we'll talk about doing hammer and probably won't do it, and then everybody goes home. Like it just never becomes... And it's all, whatever you're working on, it just becomes like a full throw bonanza. It's not that everybody's trying to compete and like it's a swinging dick thing. I'm sure there's some of that. But it just becomes like everybody wants to do the full throw and your like performance gene kicks on. And like you want to like do the thing and you want to have fun. And like, but it's really hard to keep a practice structure. If you can find a training partner that you guys agree on a training structure, even if yours is one is slightly different from each other, that's okay. Like I had two guys, one of them I still coach today, shout out to Chris DeRossier, but his buddy Barrett Young trained with him, and I would purposely give them very similar training because I knew they trained together. There would be slight variations based on things that I saw that they needed to work on, but I knew they were working together, so why fuck with it? Why have one guy doing caber on a day where another guy's got to do sheaf? They don't just do caber on a day. Trust me, I'm not that much of a fucking sadist, but like why have them be different? Like try to line them up. And if you can find somebody that you can do that with, oh, that is huge. It's rare because like I said, every group throw session I've ever been has just been like a throw bonanza basically. I'm very, very excited about practice. Like I said, you know what excites me more? Sport kilt. Sport kilt excites me because it's just like I talked about with practice. I don't have to think about it. I throw it in my bag, and it's a piece of gear that's ready to go, and it's always reliable. It's not coming apart on me, or it's not something I got to worry about breaking. It fits. It always does. Like, it's adjustable to where if I, ballooning up to throw in the A's, it's not a problem. If I shrink down a little bit to throw lightweight, it's not a big deal. They're adjustable. They're good. They look good. I can get everybody can get the tartans they want. I cover it in patches. I do the belt and the friend. I do the works kilt because I'm kind of a fancy boy. I like to look good. But go to sportkilt.com. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10%. You can get decked out at Sportkilt, y'all. You need to go do it. You need to get the socks. You need to get the shirts. You need to get the kilts. You need to get yourself a sporran for in case you got like a formal event you got to do, like some sort of, I don't know, pre-game pep rally. Like you got to be ready. You got to be looking good. So go to sportkilt.com. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. Save 10%. Hey, podcast friends. So the first half of the episode you just heard was recorded a couple of nights ago. There was a second half to this episode. Really not happy with it, so I'm not going to include it this time around. I'm not going to get into what I got into, but it was just a lot of silliness, and it ended up being kind of negative and mean. And although I don't mind negative and mean, it also just wasn't funny, and it also wasn't entertaining. It was just those two first things, so I'm just not going to include it. It's not the time for that. So I will just leave this podcast a little shorter than usual. And I'll leave it with all the practice talk that we did. And I'll leave with the idea that in the time we're all stuck like this, that you should try to be positive. And I don't mean that in the put a smile on your face, be happy, all that kind of stuff. Be forcefully cheerful. No, what I mean is do positive acts. Put things into the world in this time, because it's actually very easy to sit and think about what you can't do or what you're missing, or the lost income, the lost time, the lost productivity. It's really easy to think about that kind of stuff, but that doesn't actually do anything. That doesn't put anything into the world. That doesn't create anything to talk about. That doesn't create anything for people to gather around, or doesn't give you anything to look back on. So create in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean you have to be an artist. Doesn't mean you have to be a musician. Doesn't mean you have to be any of those things. Just means you need to create something. You need to put something into the world, whether that's your training or whether that's what you do for other people. If you create more work, if you write, if you just interact, you put a smile on somebody else's face, just be productive. Whatever that means to you, be productive, and that will be positivity. Not positivity, like I said, in the smiley, happy way, like positivity as the opposite of negative. Like positive means that there you are putting something into the world. So do that, and I'll sit here and play guitar for a little while. We'll make that a nice outro. Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.